So one day someone commented to use my waterproof spray on a cardboard boat. So I found this cardboard box and taped it up on all sides to seal it. Then I cut out a hole for me to sit in and then taped that. And then I started spraying all the waterproofing stuff. I sprayed it all around and on every single side until it was done. And then I let it sit overnight and came back the next day, put it in my brother's truck and took it on down to the creek. And when I put the box in the water, it was still dry. So I set it down, got in and started rowing. And it was completely working. I went out under the bridge and then further and then just chilled for a second and kept on rowing. This was probably one of the best cardboard boats I've ever made. And I just kept on rowing forever. Mission aboard. So one day I decided to fill a giant hamster ball up with water and get in it. I moved it to level ground and then put the hose in to let it fill up. Then I put some wood down so it wouldn't roll and let it fill. And here's the checkpoint. It's pretty cool looking and I hit it on the side and then added some more air. And after that I let it fill up to this point. And I'm going to stop it when it gets to the zipper. And it got there, so I stopped it. Then I put some goggles on and unzipped it, but it broke. But I got in anyway. I went in and swam to the side. And I looked like a fish. And then I struggled to get out. Then I threw the snorkel and went back under with just the goggles. And it was pretty cool. I swam around, did a circle, and then did another circle. And then struggled again to come up. And it was kind of like a water balloon, so I jumped on it, rocked on it, flipped on it, and then swam on it. Let me know any other ideas you have for me to try. So one day someone commented that I need to put more coats of Flex Seal on the egg. So I Flex Sealed another egg and then put another coat on the other side. And after that I let it dry, then put another coat on. And then put another coat on. And then put one last coat on. And it was done and seemed pretty sturdy, so I tested it from a waist-high drop and it held up pretty well. So I went a little higher and it seemed a little bit mushed in. So I threw it up in the air, and then it was like completely mushed in. So I just threw it up one more time for the heck of it, and it was crushed. So one day I decided to fill up a giant hamster ball with ball pit balls in it up with water. So I got in, let it air up, and then began filling it up with water. The water shocked me at first, and then I just let it fill up and stopped it before it got too heavy. I then laid in it for a second. It was pretty cool. And then I got up and went off, and fell pretty hard. And after that, I got up and fell again. But I went out and then decided to lay down and put my face underwater. Then I just chilled in it. It's pretty nice. I walked around for a bit, went out into the yard, slid in the balls, and then did a cannonball. And after all that, I decided to get out. Let me know what else I should do with it. So one day, someone commented to drop my rubber band ball from somewhere high. And I don't live anywhere where I can really do that because it weighs 65 pounds and could hurt someone. So I took it to this abandoned race car track, took it to the second story, and dropped it. And it bounced and then just rolled into the ground. And I was like, I got to do something else. So I went down to this pipe and I'm like, can I put it in there? So I looked and it just gradually got smaller. So my ball would have got stuck. Glad I didn't do that. But I just ended up throwing it off and it bounced off into the fence. And it got this mark on it. Oh well, let me know what else I should do with my rubber band ball. So one day I got a comment that said to turn my brother's truck bed into a pool and swim in it. And I've already done this for YouTube, but not really for TikTok. So here you go. I filled the pool up with water and then got in it. Sat down, and we took off. And it was pretty cool at first. I put my head underwater, and that was cool. I came up and then just chilled and enjoyed the ride. It was all pretty chill for the most part, and then we went kind of fast, and I also splashed out some water. Then we went back home and I got out. What else should I do? So one day someone commented for me to try to trade my rubber band ball with the pawn shop again, so I put it in my car, and this would be my third time going. I walked in and said, "I'm back.
Hey, what's happening, Dylan?
I actually have this new ball." I showed him my new aluminum foil ball first, and he said,
Pretty neat. You from getting an alien invasion.
I was thinking this thing is, started it, so it's probably not going to be worth a ton, $300. And he kind of looked at me like I was crazy, and then asked how many rolls of aluminum foil were in it, so I told him 6, and then he asked how much weight, and I didn't know, so I had him weigh it, and it wouldn't register.
How much did you spend on the foil?
About like 24. And he passed, so I threw it down and got the rubber band ball. Almost 80 pounds, and is the most famous rubber band ball in the world, probably, maybe.
That's massive.
He picked it up and then asked how much I'd sell it to him for, and I thought for a second, and then highballed him at 25 grand.
1,000? Wow.
And he said his shop could probably only sell it for...
$100.
So I knew we had no deal. I had to pass. I got some candy and then went out the door. And the ball almost went in the street. Let me know any other ideas you have. So one day I ordered one of those ab stimulator things I always see advertised to test if they really work. I opened it up, read the instructions, then put batteries in the motor and put the motor on and put it on my stomach. Then I turned it on and kept pressing the button to increase the intensity, and honestly it kind of tickled. And I decided to leave it on for a while to get the full effect and even do crunches and stuff. I had it on for a long time, and then I looked at the sunset and looked at my abs and realized it was time to take it off. And the results were amazing. Just kidding, that's not me. I'm right here and I don't really know if anything changed, and I don't really know if this thing works, so I just threw it over the fence but missed, so I threw it again. And then just walked away not caring. So one day I got a comment that said to float down the creek in this inflatable pool, so I cleaned it out, then put it in my brother's truck and headed on down to the creek. I re-aired it up first and then carried it on down, went across the water and got in and took off. And I was just rowing along under the bridge. It was pretty fun. I started to pick up my speed. Pshee. And like all creek videos, I just kept going out further and further until I was gone forever. Nah, not really. I came back. Comment any other ideas you want me to try. So one day I bought this bucket of 300 pieces of bubble gum to try to break the world record for the world's biggest bubble, which is actually 20 inches. I chewed the 5 pieces of gum up in my mouth, and then it was this big, and I tried to blow my first bubble, which kind of sucked. And so did the second one, and the third. And the fourth one was a little bit better, but it was honestly looking like I would never beat that record. So I put a bunch more gum in my mouth and tried again, and kept on failing. This was the best I could do, so I kicked the bucket over, and then tried that thing where you kick it in your mouth, and ended up kicking it on the ceiling. Yeah, this was a fail, but comment your other ideas. So one day I decided to take my giant water balloon and throw my rubber band ball on it to see if it would break it. I set it down in the yard, tied the zip tie and hose around it, and then let it fill up until it was all the way full. Then I took the hose out, sealed it again, and put the rubber band ball on it. And it just kind of rolled off at first, so I dropped it on it, and it stood up. So I threw it on it, and it busted. Here's a slow-mo. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of damage. Let me know any other ideas you have. So one day I decided to cartwheel across America. Well, like half of America. I cartwheeled way out of my neighborhood and on down into Arkansas, where I cartwheeled for quite a while until I made it to Mississippi, where I also cartwheeled for a while, but not quite as long, and then on up into Alabama, and then from there, clear on up into Florida, where my cartwheeling eventually got pretty bad. But the point is, I kept going clear on out to the ocean, and on into the water. Yeah. So one day I went to the clearance aisle of Walmart to look for random stuff to buy, and I found this pair of hover shoes. And I wanted to hover, so I got them. I opened them up, and they looked kind of used. But I still got on them and tried to ride, but failed at first and eventually got the hang of it. And they didn't actually hover, and were basically like a hoverboard in 2 separate pieces. It kind of reminded me of roller skating. I also tried to stand on one foot, and failed. Then I spun around and drove backwards. Then my brother tried them and failed at first, but eventually got the hang of them, kinda. Pretty neat. So one day someone commented to make another cardboard boat, but this time use Flex Seal. So I used the same broken one, thinking the Flex Seal would just fix it. I sprayed the whole thing, you know, gave it a coat on this side, and then that side. And when it was done, I let it dry and came back the next day. I then put it in my brother's truck and I took it on down to the creek. I put it in the water, got in, and started to row. I rowed all the way out through under the bridge, and it was pretty cool. I was just chilling, and eventually water started to leak in, so I tried to get out and fell. And then I drug it home. So one day I got a comment that said to zip line into a ball pit. So I took my inflatable pool, dumped it out, cleaned it with water, and then poured all the ball pit balls I had into it. And when it was done, I jumped into it. And then got on the zip line to test it out. And I'm a pro, so don't try this at home. And then my brother went. Then I went again and hit my arm on the seat on the drop. Yeah. Comment anything else I should try. So one day it was really windy, so I took this giant 6-foot water balloon and I tried to fill it up with air. I got my air pump out, filled it all the way up until it was pretty big. Then I stopped, zip tied it, tied a string around it, and ran around with it. It was pretty massive. I spun it around, threw it. It didn't pop. I kicked it, still didn't pop. And then I threw it up in the air, caught it, and we were best friends. I ran around, put it in my brother's truck, tried to shoot a basket with it, and then I bopped it with my head and bopped it a little too far and it popped. I was so bad. So one day I made this elephant toothpaste TikTok and it didn't really work, so I kicked it and tried again with different stuff, and that kind of failed too. So I bought even more stuff thinking I just ordered the wrong thing by accident, you know, but no, that's not it. So I tried again a week later with some more stuff, but first I was going to try it in a cup with a sample amount. And it kind of worked. So I went ahead and dumped all the stuff into the big jug to see if it would work. And it looked like it didn't, so I pretended to be a sprinkler, but then it started to overflow. And I sprayed it. So one day I got a comment that said to Flex Seal an egg and try to break it. So I gave it a coat of Flex Seal and then left and came back later to give it another coat. After that I let it dry and then came back and tested it. And it didn't hold up. So then I had the idea to try a pumpkin. So I bought one at Walmart and then gave it a nice coat of Flex Seal. And then I gave it another one on the bottom after it was dry. And then I tested it, hitting it up against stuff, and it was pretty durable. So I threw it and it held up. So I threw it again and again, and it finally cracked. Then I threw it into the garden to try and grow a pumpkin patch. So one day I got this comment that said to throw my rubber band ball off a hill, so I put it in my car and drove on out to a hill. I got out and carried it on up the hill, which was hard because it weighs 30 pounds, and I got to the top and threw it off. And it bounced and bounced and then started rolling, and it started bouncing again towards the bottom and went on out into the parking lot and just kept on going. And eventually I had to chase after it and jump over a fence, and I had it. And then we went back up the hill to try it again from this angle. And it went on down pretty steady, and then it looked like it was going to hit my car. And I got kind of nervous, so I started to chase after it. But it barely missed it and just went on out into the field. So one day someone commented to do the thing that made me famous, which was probably floating down the creek on random stuff. So I went to Walmart and got the stuff to make a raft. You know, noodles, cardboard, and tape. And then I went home to start building it. I lined up all the noodles and then taped them all together with lots of tape. And then flipped it over and taped on that side. And after that, I taped on a piece of cardboard and I was done. So I walked it on out to the creek, took it out to my launching point, and tried to sit on it, but it wouldn't go. So I laid on it, and it went. And I guess all I had to do was attribute my weight. I went on under the bridge, and eventually I switched to laying on my back. And I just kept on rowing on what was basically an air mattress until I was gone forever. No, I'm kidding, I came back. So one day I decided to prank my brother with fake spray paint on his truck. But I needed more, so I went to Walmart and got some. And then I started with the blue, just writing a bunch of random stuff and scribbling. And when I was out of that, I got to the orange, writing a bunch more random junk. And when I ran out of that, this side was pretty much done, so I switched over to the next side and finished it. And go ahead and like the video since I'm not making you wait for the reaction. And here it is.
This isn't a joke, right? What'd you do? What'd you do? This is fake, right?
It's real, bro.
This is real spray paint.
And when he touched it, I think he realized it was fake, so we pulled it out to the cul-de-sac and washed it. And then he tried to spray me. Yeah. So one day, my family and I rented these cool scoot cars. I got in the green one, revved it up, and then took off. And traffic was kind of slow, so I stopped and beeped at a yellow one I saw. And then continued on down the coast. And my brother didn't like my driving that much, but I thought it was great. And we eventually made it to this curve thing where I raced my dad round and around. It was pretty hard to turn though, and I almost hit the curb. And my dad did hit the curb. Then I decided to ride passenger and just enjoy the ride and the view. And I saw a helicopter. Then we pulled up to this ice cream place where I got out and waited for my brother. Then went in and got ice cream that they actually rolled up and put into a cup and then handed to me. And it was pretty good. I then switched to the red car and drove out to a gas station where I filled it up and then drove it back. So one day I went to Walmart to get a bunch of bars of soap to make one of those satisfying soap videos. I went home, opened up one of the bars of soap, and got to cutting it. And it was actually working and looked so satisfying. It would just curl up and be a little strand. And then I cut it into a brick shape and cut all that, which was really cool. Next up was the green bar, and it was also really cool. So I made it into a brick also, and it was even cooler than the other one. A bunch of tiny stuff just scraped off. And next up was the dove, and I about chopped my finger off because it was so hard to cut. Then I mutilated this bar and totally didn't fake this knife throw. Whoa! Yeah. So one day I ordered some heavy-duty water repellent to try and waterproof some things. It said it required 24 hours to dry, and I tried without letting it dry, and yeah. So I got a bunch of random stuff and started waterproofing. First with these shoes so I could run on water. Then this cardboard, then this paper, and then this random hat I found. And also this shirt, which would be great for rainy days. Then I let it all dry and came back the next day. And the cardboard kind of worked because the spray side was way more dry than the other side. And the paper also worked surprisingly well. Pretty dry. Then I put the hat on and it kind of worked. And then I put on the shirt, which actually worked really well. The water ran right off it. Then I took the shoes on down to the creek, put them on, and tried to run. And it failed, so I walked back sad, and then failed at skipping a rock. So one day I decided to take my giant 70-pound rubber band ball to an abandoned water park to throw it down a giant water slide. I walked around trying to figure out where the slide dropped off and figured out it dropped off right over there. So I went down there to make sure it was retrievable, and it seemed doable. So I got the rubber band ball, took it up a bunch of stairs, and it was ready to go. On down this old abandoned slide. But first I wanted to try out this little one. So my brother went down there to film, and I threw the ball. And it went pretty fast, so I kind of lost track, but it went all the way down and out. My brother picked it up, and then I was ready to send the big one down. And I pushed it off, and it went down pretty hard and was making a lot of noise. It went around the curve, and then I could see it going through the tunnels. It was going really fast and started making even more noise, so some people started yelling. But despite that, the ball prevailed on and went all the way out. And here's my brother's perspective. That was cool. And then I lugged my rubber band ball home. So one day I decided to take my rubber band ball and a bunch of other random stuff to a pawn shop like I did before when my rubber band ball was a lot smaller. But now it's bigger and I'm back.
Oh yeah, it was a rubber ball. Oh, it's bigger. How many bands is it now?
I don't know. I brought some more items too. I made this in junior high, a one-of-a-kind CO2 car.
Did you win?
No.
Oh, it's a illusion card.
He then looked at it and didn't want to buy it. So I showed him
This is
this.
a can of air.
It's about empty though.
Oh, I used it a little bit.
And I said it was worth,
$50.
and he said no, so I showed him the next item.
I found this at an abandoned race car track. A genuine gold cup.
Then he asked why I thought it was gold.
It looks gold.
And he even tested it and found out it was stainless steel, so I brought out the rubber band ball.
It's probably the most famous rubber band ball you'll ever see. Its intrinsic value, probably $5,000.
How'd you come up with that value?
I just did.
He didn't want to buy it, but he gave me the good idea to put it on eBay.
Like eBay.
That's a neat idea. I might do that.
So then I left. Let me know if you think I should put it on eBay. So one day I ordered a giant water balloon. I tried to figure out how I was going to fill it up, and then I thought, rubber bands. And then I began filling it up until eventually it started to leak. And I tried to fix it, but failed, so I just had my brother hold it while I jumped.
No.
Yeah, pretty cool. Now here's the slow-mo. Wow. And it was broken. Like if I should do it again. So one day someone commented to Flex Seal my broken basketball goal that's missing a lot of pieces. So I bought Flex Seal, duct tape, and a new basketball, and then went home and duct taped the entire backboard so I'd have a base for the Flex Seal. And then I Flex Sealed the entire thing on both sides until I was done, and then I came back the next day to see if it was dry. And it was, so I tested it. And it held up pretty good and took all the balls with ease. And then I threw it in the woods on accident, got it, and then kept on shooting. And I'd say it was a success because nothing would break it. And it looks pretty good. Like if you think I should Flex Seal something else. So one day I went out to a pumpkin patch to get the biggest pumpkin they had. When I walked up, I saw a dog and thought it was nice, but it barked at me. So I just went along, looked at the pumpkins, and here was the biggest ones, the biggest being 30 pounds. But it wasn't actually, because this one weighed 45 pounds. I looked around at the other pumpkins and ended up getting this one and the giant 45-pound one. I put it in the car and then went home to think about what I was going to do with it. I had 4 ideas: carve it, put it on my head, destroy it with the rubber band ball, or blow it up. And I ended up destroying some other pumpkins with the rubber band ball. Slow motion. And then I put it on as a hat. So like if you want me to blow this pumpkin up, or comment what else you want me to do with it. So one day I got a comment that said I should launch my giant rubber band ball in my giant slingshot. So I pulled it back and it did that as expected. But I also have this little rubber band ball that I pulled back and launched. It went pretty far, and then I launched it in my brother. Right there. And after that, I launched this pool noodle, and then launched it at my brother, but missed that. And then I got this GoPro and decided to launch it with the camera on. I pulled it back, and here's the camera's angle. It spun all around and hit the ground. I found it, and it was still okay, so I tried it again. And this angle was pretty cool. There's my brother picking it up. So I've learned these things are pretty tough, and comment what else I should launch. So one day I saw that I left my giant hamster ball out in the leaves for months, so I got a leaf blower, blew all the leaves out, and saw that there was still a bunch of Orbeez, so I cleaned all the Orbeez out, put them in the dumpster, and I also had to hurry because there was a storm coming. I rinsed off the hamster ball, and then decided to try to get in it with these hover shoes. I got in, and then my brother zipped me up and aired me on up. But I had to stop and get out because it got too dark and stormy. But the next day was super sunny, so I got in and tried again. It aired up, and then I put my hood on because it was kind of grimy and went off. I got on the hover shoes, spun around, walked around, and fell. Then I drove a little bit more, went off into the grass, then decided to get out and throw the hamster ball away because it was really grimy. But here's the good news. If this video gets 1.5 million likes, I'll buy a new, bigger, better $800 hamster ball. So one day I took a Power Wheels to a fast food place. I got in and drove on up after a lot of struggle. And then I pressed the button to order my food.
I would like a corn dog and a large tot. All right, thank you.
Then a car drove by and said,
500. Thank you. My daddy bought it.
I then sat there, waved at the camera, then played with all the car's buttons. And eventually my food came.
A corn dog and then a large tot.
Yep.
I'll get you an extra sauce.
All right, thank you.
Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you. Then I drove away with my food, and I think this is going to become my new go-to vehicle. And it was a good corn dog. So one day I saw one of David Dobrik's TikToks where he was kicking gum into his mouth, so I drove to the gas station to get some gum and try. I had the gum and I was ready to teach myself how to do this. I put 3 pieces in my mouth, chewed it up, blew a bubble, set some cardboard down for the gum to fall on, and kept missing. Then I switched over to this gum and first practiced my form, then went for it. And I just kept missing and using more pieces, and I was starting to get pretty mad and using up a lot of gum. And I got kind of close here when I caught it and stuck it in my mouth, but then I just kept missing, and then got kind of close. Then I had one hit the ceiling, stick to it, and then fall back down. And then one that almost hit the camera. And then one where I knocked down the blinds. And then another close one. And I was down to 2 pieces of gum. The first one hit the ceiling, so I got another one. And it got dirty too, so I washed it off. And then after a long 26 minutes, I finally got one. And then I celebrated. David Dobrik is one talented man. So one day I decided to turn my brother's truck bed into a ball pit. First I taped up this hole, and then got all the ball pit balls from my hamster ball and dumped them out into the truck. Until eventually it was done and ready to take down the road. I jumped in it, laid down, and then just chilled. Then I got a GoPro and we headed out. And it was pretty cool, just moving along through my neighborhood in a ball pit. Yeah, and I just chilled there. And then some almost came out, but I got them. I just sat there, moved some balls around, and we went all out through the neighborhood. And at one point it was pretty shaky, but for the most part, the ride was pretty chill, and I even laid down. Then we went back home, and I got out and threw my GoPro in. I put my hand in there and found it, and then we put all the balls back in the hamster ball, like if we should do something else with all the ball pit balls. So one day I bought this giant slingshot to launch random stuff. I taped this side to the tree, and then the other, and it was ready to launch. So I filled up a box of water balloons, put one in, and it launched pretty good. Then the next one hit a tree. Then I had my brother stand back and shot him in his direction and then almost hit him a few times. This one was right past him. And here's the first person. I put it in, pull it back, and launch it. Then I went to Walmart to get some pumpkins to try to launch them. I went home and it wasn't working very well. This was my best launch. So I got mad, got on the zip line, and threw it at a tree. Then took the broken pieces and tried to launch them, and they actually did pretty well. Here's another one. Then I had some little pumpkins I also tried, and almost hit my brother. Here it is from behind, flying in the air. And here's another first-person launch. Let me know what else I should try. So after trying and failing to beat the world record for the world's largest bubble with this gum, I drove out to Walmart to get a Clips gum that someone recommended to me. I sat down, got 3 pieces out, put it in my mouth, and started chewing. And I was determined to beat a record. Here was my first bubble. Trash. Second one, trash. Third one, too. So then I got my laptop out to look up how to blow a better bubble and figured I needed new gum. But first I wanted to try this trick again, and got it. Yeah, I'm cool. Then I drove out to the gas station and got this gum. And I started out with the Hubba Bubba. Put 1 piece in my mouth, chewed it up, and blew a decent bubble. I could tell it was better gum, and I blew this bubble with a few more pieces. I got another piece, chewed it up, and blew this. Then this. Then this one. I added another piece and kept blowing even bigger bubbles. And after another piece, got my biggest yet. Here's the slow-mo. I was pretty happy, and after that, I blew this one, was able to hold it, and then bite it again and blow another bubble. Then I just threw the gum against the wall for no reason. And I didn't break a record, but comment what else I should try.